Hey you guys, welcome to part 2 of my Q&A video. This one is all about homeschooling. If you're new to my channel, my name is Rachel and I have 3 children ages 8 all the way up to 14, almost 15. So I am homeschooling a high schooler. So I've almost got the whole gamut of homeschool ages under my belt. Feels interesting, I guess. I've learned a lot. By the time my last one gets all the way through, I'll be a homeschool expert, right? So there is a lot of questions that you guys have asked me, and some of the questions that you asked are going to be better answered in another video, so I will let you know those. Okay, so I have a lot of questions here about curriculum. I have some questions about homeschooling high school, and I have some questions about homeschooling and our personal experience. So that's kind of how I'm going to go through these. Some of these will be very quick to answer, so we'll see how long this takes. First question, have I bought the Campfire Curriculum subscription? No, I have not. I have not tried any Campfire curriculums yet. It is on my list of things to consider for next year. There are several of the Campfire Curriculum units that I am intrigued by, and one of the things that intrigues me about them is the fact that they say that they are only about a half an hour every time you do a lesson. I like stuff like that. That's going to bring in a different experience than, say, a history or science curriculum is going to give you, but also isn't going to make it feel like it's going to take a huge chunk out of your day. For me, that's the challenge of homeschooling, is I, as mom, want to do so many things, and I just don't have the time, as you probably can relate to also. Best places to shop for curriculum. I'm not going to be able to find the Good and the Beautiful curriculum anywhere except from the Good and the Beautiful, right? Whereas like Master Books, you could probably buy that on several different sites. Singapore Math, Explode the Code, things like that you can buy in a whole gamut of places. So here's where I go first. If it's a book where I can buy it used, so maybe it's a teacher's manual or a textbook or something, I might try thrift books first to see if I can buy it used. If, depending on what time of year that I need it, we have used homeschool curriculum sales around our area, I might wait to go to a used homeschool curriculum sale to save some money. So if you, in your area, you have some sort of way you can figure that out, I have gotten a lot of great deals from local moms. Facebook groups also. So if there's a specific curriculum and you don't mind buying used, so for example, Classical Conversations has used curriculum Facebook groups. My Father's World has used curriculum Facebook groups. If you want to get a deal, you might check out used groups. I have bought from eBay before, also used. So for used curriculum, thrift books, Facebook groups, maybe eBay, and a local used curriculum sale. That would be where I check first. Next, online Rainbow Resources homeschool website, or going to a homeschool convention where Rainbow Resources is going to be there. They, for the most part, are just a little bit less expensive than, say, christianbooks.com. I think I've mentioned this in this day in the life of homeschool shopping video, that I also have I have a few local used bookstores where I have found homeschool books. So online used book. I've seen some other homeschool mom videos where they talk about Book Outlet, I think. I don't know if that's like a thrift book store. So let me know in the comment below, are there any other online used book websites like thrift books where you buy homeschool curriculum? Let us all know in the comments below, or else we should check out. My favorite curriculum for what subject? What is my favorite curriculum? I can't answer this question because it depends on what my child needs. I wouldn't say that I have a favorite curriculum. I would say there are curriculums that I would never look into again, like Gather Round. I did videos on why Gather Round didn't work for us, so I am not even tempted to go there again. Beyond that, I can't say there's a curriculum that I would never go back to. It just depends on what my family's needs are for that year. I mean, we did My Father's World our very first year of homeschooling, and I liked it for what it was. I had to leave it for it being a little bit too much for my family at that time, but I have looked into it a few times since. Even though we don't do Classical Conversations, I think it's an excellent curriculum. You should check out this pros and cons video about classical conversations. And if you have more questions about classical conversations, because maybe you're looking into it, I used to run information meetings, so drop those below. I can answer more questions about classical conversations. It just wasn't a good fit for us at this time. I like the good and the beautiful. There are things that I like about the good and the beautiful. There are things that I don't like about the good and the beautiful. Very few things that I don't like about it, though. I really like it. My kids are using 3 different math curriculums. I mean, how do I choose a favorite curriculum? I really can't. I've sung the praises of IEW and Lost Tools of Writing. I mean, I love everything. Is that okay? I've done a video on a reason for spelling. I still like a reason for spelling and a reason for handwriting. I mean, I like it all. There's also a ton of curriculums I've never even used. So this is a problem when I go to a homeschool convention. I'm like a little kid in a toy story. I want to buy everything. There's so many good curriculums out there. I can tell you curriculum that I don't like are going to be the more traditional ones. I don't really like Abeka or Bob Jones or those sorts of curriculums where you're going to have one subject for every single grade level. Those are more for Christian schools. That's a Christian school style. I don't feel like that's the way that I would want to do my homeschool. I don't want all my kids to have their own subjects and never be integrated with each other. And it just seems like a lot of work on mom, those curriculums. So I can't say what my favorite is. I can tell you what my not favorite is, which was the next question. So I think I answered both of those. Do you do all language arts subjects every day? If I can. I think language arts and math is one of those things that in Bible, those are the 3 things that I try to do every single day. So reading, writing, and arithmetic in Bible. Reading, writing, arithmetic, Bible. Those are the things that I always try to get done every day. Science and history and fun stuff like art, those are the things that if we're having a really busy day, they will drop off. So like if we got doctor's appointments or hair appointments or somebody's not feeling well, we might not do that. But yes, we're doing language every single day. Now, I will say one of my struggles is read alouds. This is something that I want to get better at, not cutting out my read aloud every day. So I think I'm getting better at that this year, because even if somebody's sick, I can still read aloud to them. And I've also found some of the books that we were interested in reading, I don't have to buy the audiobook. I found some of them on YouTube, like somebody just recording themselves reading these books aloud. So that's been kind of nice too. Then I can play a YouTube video audiobook. But yeah, language arts every day, I think is something that we strive for. So if somebody asked me who has a first grader, what is my favorite history curriculum and geography? I like this as a group style. I don't want to have a separate history curriculum for each of my kids. So I like doing it together as a family. So anything where it's integrated together is going to be my favorite. I've never done the mystery of history, but I have looked at it and it has been intriguing to me. And it's kind of very similar to Story of the World in that it tells a story. Story of the World, you can either read it as a read aloud or there's audiobooks, but it kind of tells it like as a story. That is not Christian, but I have listened to those audiobooks because like my library has them. So I've rented or checked out those audio CDs for my library before and listened to the Story of the World, and they're very engaging. Like I love listening to them, but I also love history. I haven't heard the Mystery of History audiobooks. You have to purchase those separate. Mystery of History is a Christian curriculum, but both Mystery of History and Story of the World, you can just do the textbook and just listen to the story, but they also have options of creating timelines, doing different activities, art activities, all kinds of ideas that you could add into it. So if your kids like doing that sort of busy work, especially if your kids are young and you have a lot more, I don't know, it's hard to say you have more flexibility in your day because it depends on if you have a baby or a toddler who's a constant interrupter. But I would say when your kids are younger, you have a lot more flexibility because you don't have to school all day long. So you really can set aside time for these fun activities. And also when your kids are younger, they don't have to have history and science. You need to do reading, writing, and arithmetic. And then to me, the science and the history are a bonus when you can do it. That's okay when they're younger. So you can do some of these more fun things. It's a little bit more challenging as they get older because they have a lot more assignments and a lot more of their time is needed to complete their schoolwork. But I think both of those curriculums look interesting. Okay, so the next few questions are about high school homeschool. Would I change anything about the Good and the Beautiful high school language arts this year? So I just did a video, 12 things that I didn't know about the Good and the Beautiful language arts. That was a collaboration I did with Colleen at Our Blessed Life. I don't know what else I would add to that video, honestly. So if you haven't seen it, check this one out. This is kind of where I talked about things that I didn't know when we started and how I've adjusted. Would I change anything? We're still getting through the year. I mean, it's only January. I don't really have a whole lot more to say than what I already said in that video, except for this. So I will do a review on the Good and the Beautiful language arts for high school, probably at the end of the year. So I will say this. I am considering if we're going to do it next year. And it's not because I don't like the Good and the Beautiful, because one thing I do really like about this one in particular is that there is a lot of variety. So it's not boring, and I think even my son would say that. He has something different he can do every day since it does include art and it does include geography. So, and even every booklet is different, which I point out in that video. But for my son, I am struggling with the process of writing. And that's where I need to assess this curriculum and maybe look at it closer, how it is teaching the writing process. Because when he's handing me in his papers, I'm still seeing a lot of stuff that we should have already learned from Classical Conversations Essentials program, which utilized the Institute for Excellence in Writing. So since he hadn't done IEW since 6th grade, and now here we are in high school, and it still seems like he's struggling a little bit with the process, I'm actually thinking about if I might have him do an IEW high school course next year. Because the Good and the Beautiful only has 3 years for high school anyway. So I could always do IEW to solidify the process, because I do like the way IEW teaches it. And then we could switch back to the Good and the Beautiful because I love the variety. So those are my only additional thoughts on that, and we'll just have to see how the rest of the year goes and what I end up choosing for next year. Okay, how do I get my older kids to happily work independently? Does it have to be happily? Well, my son likes being independent. He's very diligent. He likes to know what's expected, and he just wants to get her done. The drawback to that is whether he gets her done with quality. I did a video on how, on his planner that we use, this planner is a big part of how I help him work independently. And then I did another video with how I kind of scheduled out his work so that he could also be independent. So if you haven't checked both of these videos out, those are a big thing that I do. Now for my 6th grader, how do I get her to work independently? I'm actually going to do a video coming up with how we manage our daily to-do list. That video is probably about, it's a good month out because I just have a list of videos I need to do first. But she has a checklist that she works from, but she's also, I wouldn't say she's completely independent. I mean, if I had to leave for the day and I left her a list, it's hit or miss whether or not she does it. That's just her personality though, because I gotta say my 2nd grader is probably more dependable in that way than my older child. So a lot of that has to do with personality, honestly. If your kids like checklists, that's very helpful if you just list out what they want to do and they know how to move from thing to thing to thing to thing. And then also, how teacher intensive is your curriculum? So I did a video on how to homeschool multiple children where I give a lot of tips for this in there. So if you haven't checked that video out, it might answer some of these questions. Best tips for homeschooling middle school. Again, a planner. Honestly, you've got to start helping your child know how to manage their own work independently. So if you have a child who needs help with that, teach them how to plan. Teach them how to use a planner. Not every child is going to be a planner type child. So like when I was in junior high, you could hand me a planner. I might use it for a couple weeks, but then I'm going to manage my list in my head. That's fine if they're getting it done. They might just need a checklist. They might not need a planner. So just figuring out how to help your child plan their work. And it may require mom to sit with them on a weekly basis and say, okay, here's all the things that we need to do this week, and let them figure out how they're going to get it done. Like, what if your child wants to take one day out of the week and they want to do like all of their language arts assignments in one day? My son tried to do that once when he was in 4th grade. He wanted to know what all of his math assignments for the week were, and he wanted to do them all one day. He wanted to do one subject a day. I let him try it out. I let them exercise their own independence and figure out how they're going to get their work done. When your child is in middle school, they kind of want to start having independence. So teach them how to be responsible at the same time. So that's a big one. Like, I don't hover. I try not to hover. I try to give my son his space. That was a transition during middle school. Another transition during middle school, if you have a boy in particular, and maybe also with girls, I started speaking to him differently, less like a mother speaking to a child, and more, I guess, in a way where he knew that I was respecting his opinion and his decision for how he wanted to do things. So I think that's kind of important too, because it's a tricky transitional time. They want to start spreading their wings and making their own decisions. So do that, but guided. But I would also be cautious of giving them too much independence, especially when it comes to computers. I'll just leave it there. I personally would not get my middle schooler a phone or free rein to that sort of thing, or even to an iPad or any kind of tablet device, because they just figure out things so quickly. I would trust but verify. Give them your trust, but also check up on them regularly to make sure they're not deceiving you. And if you do find out your middle schooler is deceiving you and you're just like a distraught mom and you don't know what to do, and motherhood's getting harder and harder and harder as you get in middle school, check out this video, because I have been there, girl. I have been there. There's hope. What I would do differently now with my homeschool, like if I had to go back now that my kids are older, what I would do differently. And that is actually on my docket to be a separate video, because yes, there are many, many things that I would do differently. So I am going to try to get that video done, I don't know, before the summer. I don't know when I can get these done, because you guys, I only have time to do one video a week and there are so many to do. But I have a lot of things for that one. And then I have a few questions about kind of like our personal experience with homeschooling. One, what do my kids do when they are not schooling? So I do have a rule in my house that they are not allowed to turn on the TV or do any sort of screens before 4 o'clock. So even if they get their schooling done, that is not allowed, which my high schooler's never done by 4 o'clock, just so you know. But that's because he takes his time during the day, and that's okay. My younger girls are often done by 2 o'clock. So we have a playroom. They can go play. They can, if it's nice outside, they might go out, ride their bikes. We do some outside activities. My 6th grader takes ukulele lessons. My little one just started ballet lessons. I may get them into tumbling. We have chores. They have morning chores and afternoon chores, which I'm going to address, like how I work all that out in that future video about how we manage our daily to-do list. They have basic things that they need to do every day, which is make sure their room is clean, make sure that if there's any laundry that was done, they have to fold and put away or hang up their own laundry. I do not do that for them. In fact, they even have to sort the laundry. Our laundry room is on the 2nd floor of our house. So often it's kind of thrown in the upstairs hallway when it comes out of the dryer. And my daughters are supposed to be the one to sort it to whatever room it's supposed to go to, and they have to do that whenever that's there. They like to do crafts. They like to paint. So I just am trying to get them to use their brains, is all I can say. But I'm definitely not one of those moms who just says, no screens. Kind of a conundrum in my house, because that's one of those things where if you and your husband are on the same page about TV and video games and all that, it's a lot easier. My husband and I have different ideas on that, and so I just go with what he says. And my son has an Xbox. My daughters love to do that, but they can't all do it at the same time. So they take turns with that. There's also some apps, some educational apps that I put on our iPad. They might do those in their spare time, so they're not necessarily things that they would do every day. But I've thought about doing a video about the educational apps that we use. Let me know if you want to know more about that. The next question is, did I always plan to homeschool? The answer to that is a definitive no. I did not plan to homeschool. I was intrigued by homeschooling though, because my older brother did it first, and he was actually a public school teacher, but his kids were homeschooled, so that was kind of intriguing. Like, why wouldn't you send your kids to public school? I went to public school, so I honestly thought that's where my kids would go. Till my son was in preschool, I had never even considered anything other than public school. It wasn't even on my radar. One of my best friends from grade school, though, who is my age, but she had children much earlier than I did, she also decided to homeschool, which I thought was interesting. So I was introduced to the idea of homeschooling before I was even married. So I wasn't afraid of homeschooling. It was a brand new concept to me. When I was growing up, the homeschoolers were either like super, super conservative Christian or super, super like university liberals, right? Like hippies. They weren't like what it is now. It wasn't like what it is now, okay? Like Heidi St. John even says this. When she started homeschooling, she imagined the jean jumpers and raising goats, like, and with everybody playing their violins. Like, that's how you envisioned homeschoolers. But that's definitely not what it is now, as I think you know. But that's probably why I never even thought about it, because I didn't identify with either one of those groups that I associated homeschooling with, but I wasn't afraid of it. And so then the last question here is, why did I decide to homeschool? Well, I did a whole video about that, so check it out right here. How I convinced my husband to homeschool, because I was open to it earlier than he was. God ordained this, I'm telling you guys. Our story of homeschooling was a perfect storm of things that happened where it was undeniable. So check out my story there. I hope you enjoyed this. Give me a thumbs up if you did. Bye.